Tonight, driving instructors protest the government's suspension of driving exams. The Education Minister says the jury is still out on the reopening of schools. And the Foreign Affairs Minister on her high hopes that Joe Biden will remove Leahy law sanctions on St. Lucia. The details of these stories and more are coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovely St. Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Monday, the 9th of November, 2020. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. I'm Lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. Representatives of driving schools across St. Lucia have taken umbrage to the recent suspension of theory and practical exams by the Ministry of Transportation. Instructors stormed the grounds of the Office of the Prime Minister, saying that what transpired was a clear sign of disrespect on the part of the government. Nisha Charles begins our reporting.
According to the Secretary of the National Association of Driving Schools, Kingston Jean, the suspension of the theory and practical exams by the Ministry of Transport took effect 2 Thursdays ago. On Monday, driving instructors who gathered outside the Graham Louisi Administrative Building said their actions were primarily in response to the lack of consultation on the part of the relevant authorities. The Secretary says the matter was not properly handled.
Way too often, persons in authority take decisions that affect the minority and do not inform the minority of their decision or have consultation with them before they implement what they decide to implement. You see, any practical exam doesn't stop there. It costs the poor man because you have to get a new medical certificate sometimes, $150 sometimes. You have to get new permit, sometimes you renew your permit, $75, sometimes you have to go and redo your theory exam. That means you have to go through the whole process again. This is not right for the poor people.
Keel Montrope of Must Pass Driving School said a disservice was done to the driving students in particular.
All of us, we upset because, again, with that ministry, they don't do consultation. It's the lack of consultation, especially with the stakeholders, with the people affected, and that's the problem, you understand? There are a few students that had to be done with the exams already, and that set them back. So they would either have to reimburse the students, well, maybe extend on their permits. Right now, the students are at loss. I myself more concerned about the students that are at loss. Because when you already plan for something and then it didn't take place, right now you have to get added funds and all these kind of things.
The driving instructors had hoped for a meeting with the Prime Minister or the Minister responsible for transport. Jean indicated that the Prime Minister did promise that the Minister for Transport would dialogue with the instructors.
We're hoping that you realize that consultation is very, 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 very important. And we're hoping that we'll be able to resume business as of this week. Because a lot of people lose a lot of money already. A lot of people will continue losing money. We're hoping that the ministry will probably say, hey, because we consider for 2 weeks, we're going to give you some extra time on your permit. And some extra time on your theory. It costs people.
Scores of the island's driving schools were represented at Monday's protest. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
Meanwhile, Transport Minister Guy Joseph says due to the rapid rise in COVID-19 cases, the move was absolutely necessary, as the alternative course of action would have been worse. Rochelle Gonzalez reports.
Transportation Minister Guy Joseph is defending the actions taken by the government to suspend theory and practical driving examinations with immediate effect. After receiving the notice 2 weeks ago, the reaction generated was one of anger, shock, and frustration by the National Association of Driving Schools, NADS. The entire scenario was like deja vu, as the government only just ironed out creases with the island's fisherfolk, whose licenses were suddenly suspended for 1 week with immediate effect on Friday the 30th of October, without consultation with the fisherfolk. This suspension was followed up by a demonstration outside the office of the Prime Minister the following Monday, the 2nd of November. And this was the same scene on Monday, November 9th. When the issue was presented to the Transport Minister Guy Joseph, he said due to the dire circumstances unfolding on island with the rapidly growing number of cases of COVID-19, the ministry was left with little choice.
It is a matter that came up that we had to deal with in kind of a sudden manner. It was not a straightforward situation. because we will continue to emphasize that a lot of persons are not following the protocols.
Joseph said this route was a much better option to take rather than the inevitable one that would have taken place if the ministry had not intervened.
It was on that basis we said, can we do a suspension? Because it meant that they had the option of downing their tools and saying we are not working in this environment. And they actually cited the part of the labor code that they would invoke in order to do so. We can have it a lot worse than that. While we are trying to accommodate them in a number of areas, if we have one outbreak in the department, it means that you close the entire department for every other service that is available. So that is the basis on which it had to be a sudden decision, because you did not want it to escalate at a point where you would lose the workers that you need to get it done.
The minister said there was dialogue, but perhaps no one cared to listen as they did not agree with what was being said.
People almost make it sound like consultation is asking for permission. You consult, and we need to be precise in what we are saying. So there have been dialogue. The dialogue may not be what people want. It may not be what they want to hear.
Joseph was due to meet with the NADS members on Monday to work on a way forward. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Rochelle Gonzalez.
With the continued rise in COVID-19 cases, the Ministry of Education is no closer to deciding when schools will reopen. It was mandated that all schools would remain closed until the 30th of November amidst confirmation of community spread on the island. On Monday, Education Minister Dr. Gail Rigobert said the jury is still out on the reopening of schools.
I don't know that we are yet in a position to determine when school will be resumed, given what we are experiencing with COVID-19 currently. The conversation with the Ministry of Health officials continues, and I am sure when they are comfortable that we can reopen school, we will make that known to the public.
Minister Rigobert revealed that once community spread is under control, the Ministry of Education should be in a better position to determine when and how schools will reopen. Stay with us. Still to come, Mary Isaac on the viral video showing deplorable conditions at the respiratory hospital, a noted spike in COVID cases over the weekend, and Foreign Affairs Minister Sarah Flood-Bobre on her high hopes that U.S. President-elect Joe Biden will remove Leahy law sanctions on St. Lucia. That and more after the break.